Arsenal versus Atletico Madrid Champions League predictions. This game is going to be absolutely box office, guys. Arsenal's home form is surely such an unbelievable advantage, but Atletico Madrid have got some serious talent going forward, and Diego Simeone is an absolute master. He's been here twice himself, obviously over a decade ago now. It's going to be very, very juicy, and when you look at Atletico Madrid, I was very disappointed in the first half of how they performed. I thought they were very flat, dare I say it, nervous. I actually think the men in the room in that game were Arsenal. They approached that game like they were serial Champions League winners themselves and not trying to get to their first Champions League final in 20 years. I was very impressed with the maturity of Arsenal's performance. I even think they could have left Madrid with a win because I think it was a clear penalty. On Eze, I still feel that way, 100%. A 1-1 draw is absolutely brilliant. You look at Diego Simeone and the statistics aren't looking good. Arsenal unbeaten so far. Arsenal's home form in the Champions League is unbelievable. Arsenal's last result against Atletico Madrid, 4-0 at the start of the season, is unbelievable. And then you look at Arsenal's home record against Spanish sides. It's absolutely sensational. 1 loss in the last 15. So that's going back many, many years in European games. So Arsenal's home advantage is very, very powerful here, and that's why the game is box office, because if Atletico Madrid get anything, they'd be causing Arsenal's first loss in the Champions League all season, and they'd be doing something which is largely unheard of based on what the Emirates represents to Arsenal, what a fortress it has become. You have to sit there and say that. The talking points have got very interesting after the Fulham game. You have to sit there and say that Gyökeres, in the last few weeks, has really come into his own. There's a lot of criticism about Gyökeres. I was one of them, guys. I think he started off the season slow. He's notched up goals along the way. I actually think if he wins anything this season, and at this stage in the season, we're saying it's either a Premier League or a Champions League, he's had an unbelievable world-class season, because you have to factor in the way Sweden got into the World Cup as well. Like, they've had to hire Graham Potter out of nowhere, and they've qualified through the back door. And it felt like he scored winning goals for Sweden all the way through their campaign. So if Arsenal won, let's just say Arsenal win the Premier League, which they look like they're strong favourites to do right now, and Sweden have gone into a World Cup out of nowhere because of Victor Gyökeres. He's had an unbelievable, well-rounded campaign where he's averaging 1 goal every 2 games. And a lot of those appearances for Arsenal, substitute appearances as well, in that mid part of the season when Kai Havertz came back. He wasn't always starting games. Against Fulham and against Atletico Madrid, he led the line brilliantly. His link-up play has definitely improved. He's working on it every single week. He looks a touch lighter on his feet as well. He's moving very, very well. And the finishes worked a treat. Trossard, the one that he hangs up to Gyökeres, it's the kind of service he's not really had all season. Some of those Gyökeres goals that he's scored so far, 21 in all competitions in 50, a lot of them he's had to work himself, and sometimes he's looked a little bit clumsy running at players, but he's had to kind of get the ball and beat a couple of guys. And I remember one against Leeds United, I think, where he's just running at people because he almost has to do it himself. The service always hasn't been the greatest. Let's be real. Trossard, for me, gives you great service. Maybe he's a little bit inconsistent for goals himself. And Saka, of course, always gives great service. For me, those will be the 2 players giving him service in the game. I think Saka resting against Fulham was big, and Trossard has to start his game. I know Martinelli's form and fitness is good, and form in the Champions League is good as well. But I think Gyökeres would rather play with Trossard than Martinelli, and Saka is obviously a given. I think Gyökeres will score in this game. Any penalty, if it goes to penalties as well, penalty shootout, I don't think he's missed a penalty in the last 20, 25. He's got one of the best penalty records I've ever seen. And that goes massively big in a competition like the Champions League. It really does. Against Fulham, he looked brilliant. He looked powerful. He looked bigger than the centre-backs for Fulham, competing well with Anderson. And I think the Fulham game was a big moment to think, actually, he is getting better and better and better. The Atletico Madrid game, massive pressure. That penalty, if he gets it wrong, it derails the campaign for Arsenal. It's big pressure there. It was. And no one in the stadium, no one watching at home thought he was going to miss that. And I certainly didn't either. I just thought back of the net, pace, power, he's going to smash this ball. And he did. Saka's the big one. Because Arsenal performed so well against Fulham, they got it so right. And Arteta did get it right with Skelly, Calafiori coming in, Trossard, and of course Saka. Because they did so well early in the game, Gyökeres is obviously a big part of that as well, scoring a brace. that they could afford to rest Saka. If it was 0-0, I think Saka plays until the 70th minute, 65th minute. And then they're really struggling because Madueke doesn't have the same level of quality in the final third, and they need something from someone else. And it's a little bit like the Everton game, maybe the Newcastle game, a little bit nervous. Because they excelled so early in this game against Fulham, who were fighting for European football themselves. It was a tricky game. It was a London derby. They were able to rest Saka at half-time. It was an astute decision. I was hearing the commentary at the time saying, why is he getting rested? Why not give him a few more minutes? Because 45 minutes at this juncture is very, very good for Saka, and there's no risk. 3-0 Fulham, 45 minutes to Saka is very, very strong. You look at Atletico Madrid, they made 11 changes in the league against Valencia, and that's their right to do it. I think Arsenal, if they could afford to, would try and do something similar. But there is a flip side to the narrative that actually having to play your big guns and then getting to rest them after 55, 60 minutes. Rice goes off as well for Zubimendi. Zubimendi gets rested for the Fulham game as well, for the Atletico Madrid game. It keeps you both sharp and rested at the same time. I don't know if making 11 changes does too much at this stage in the season. I don't think it does. I think you want these players who are always going to be on the fringe of being injured anyway. They play a lot of football, both clubs. I think Saka being sharp and Gyökeres being sharp and Rice being sharp, I don't see it as much of an advantage that Atletico Madrid made 11 changes. I think Arteta has got it right. Zubimendi, I think he's got that right as well. I think Zubimendi's quality is clear for everyone to see. I've said at the start of the season, he was probably the summer signing of the season so far. But in October, the way he was controlling games, and he's even scored a few big goals, I was thinking, wow, this guy's a deal, a bargain. And I think he's come unstuck because his legs have gone a little bit. I think he's been shattered. He's played a lot of football. And he hasn't really been rotated by Arteta. He was against Fulham, and that's a massive asset for Mikel Arteta. Skelly comes in for Arsenal in the game. He's not going to start against Atletico Madrid. Very doubtful of that. But if anything goes wrong in the game, now Arsenal have got an asset where they can actually get a midfielder in there that moves the ball, carries the ball with a lot more pace and urgency than someone like, or even Zubimendi, maybe Norgard, maybe even Odegaard, and they're slightly different positions. But Skelly's an asset that we've learned can play for Arsenal because of the Fulham game as well. Hincapié rested. I think he was good against Atletico Madrid. Could even scored in the first 3 minutes of the game. So he's rested and he's fresh. Eze's rested as well. Let's be real. He'll be a big asset in this game. I remember the Leverkusen game. Arsenal struggled a little bit away from home. Leverkusen made it tricky. The way he scores that goal at the Emirates, I can see something similar against Atletico Madrid. I think Eze is the jewel in the crown, really, in this Arsenal midfield. I can see him scoring a big goal. We have to sit there and say Atletico Madrid had chances. They could have won the game 2-1, 3-1. Maybe if the Eze penalty stands, it's 3-2, even in the first leg. It was far more end-to-end than I think a lot of people who criticise it for not being PSG Bayern Munich would say. Lookman had a couple of chances. I think the narrative around Lookman being a top world-class forward will always have these questions because he does very well consistently, but he never has... I've not seen him personally have that kind of world-class moment that takes him into the discussions of other top world-class left-wingers. He's still got a lot of time to get there. But the chances he missed against Arsenal were point blank, and he maybe could have done a lot better. Alvarez, he'll be fit for the game by all accounts. Obviously picked up a bit of a knock in the game, scores a big penalty. He's the real one. If he scores early at the Emirates, that's where Atletico Madrid can really turn the screw and sit there and dig deep and maybe nick a 1-0. But I just doubt it. I was so disappointed in Atletico Madrid. They didn't show anything really in that midfield. It felt like a midfield that had a utility role. It didn't have too much creativity. Of course, Griezmann gives you that further up the pitch. But I was so flat by Simeone's performance. I mean, he's raving and running up and down the touchline like a Shakespearean actor on the stage. Then I see his side, I think it hasn't translated, and they look a little bit nervous. And I actually doubt the quality in that squad as well. I think Alvarez is world class. I think he'd start for Arsenal in a heartbeat. I look around, I think, would Llorente start for Arsenal? Like, would these guys start for... I don't know. Griezmann, he's 1 foot away from the retirement community in the MLS. So I look at it and think, I don't rate this Atletico Madrid side as much as other sides, to be completely honest. But Alvarez is the quick